The Grand Combat Tournament was the pride of the galaxy. Every 5 cycles, warriors from dozens of species gathered on the arena world of Zalor Prime to prove their strength. Crowds filled the colossal stadium, their cheers echoing like thunder as champions stepped into the ring. Glory, honor, and eternal fame waited for the victor. Only the strongest survived here. Only the greatest left a mark on history. On this day, among towering aliens with shining armor and exotic weapons, one figure stood out for the wrong reasons. He was a human. His name was Marcus Hale. He was not tall compared to the giant reptilians. He was not armored like the insectoid clans. He carried no strange powers, no glowing aura, no advanced weapons. Instead, his body told a different story. His skin was scarred, cut lines across his arms, burns across his shoulders, old wounds healed in uneven patterns. Where other species healed perfectly, or even grew back new limbs, Marcus bore the marks of every battle he had ever survived, and the crowd noticed. They let this one enter, sneered a scaled warrior with gleaming claws. Look at him. His body is broken before the fight even begins. Another laughed. Humans, hissed an insectoid voice, clicking in mockery. A weak, fragile race. They are better suited to farming, not fighting. Even some of the younger human spectators in the stands lowered their eyes, embarrassed at the sight of Marcus among the proud champions. To them, scars were shame. To the other species, scars were signs of imperfection, of weakness, of failure to endure. Marcus did not respond. He stood quietly, adjusting the worn strap of his simple chest plate. His weapon was a plain steel blade, nothing like the energy swords or plasma spears around him. His face was calm, his blue eyes steady, as if none of the laughter touched him. But deep inside, he remembered every scar. He remembered the battles that gave them to him, wars on ruined colonies, fights against raiders, desperate survival when supplies ran out, battles where no healing pod came to rescue him. Each mark on his skin was a story, and each story was proof. He had endured. The announcer's voice thundered through the arena. First round, first match, contestant, Marcus Hale of Earth versus Drakkar of the Skalthar brood. A roar went through the crowd as Marcus's opponent stepped into the arena. Drakkar was a reptilian giant, nearly 3 meters tall, with armored scales glinting like black stone. His claws were the size of knives, and his heavy tail dragged behind him with a weight that cracked the sand floor. He flexed his arms and the crowd cheered. To them, the result was already certain. The human would be crushed in moments. Drakkar pointed a claw at Marcus and sneered. You are scarred because you are weak. Today you will earn your last scar across your chest before you die. The crowd laughed, voices rising like a storm. End him quickly, shouted one alien. Send him back to Earth in pieces, cried another. Still Marcus said nothing. He only tightened his grip on his sword and stepped forward into the circle. The gates closed, sealing the arena. Dust rose in the air. The fight had begun. Drakkar charged like a living avalanche, claws raised to tear the human apart. Marcus waited, calm, reading the movement. At the last second, he sidestepped, rolling across the sand as Drakkar's claws tore deep furrows into the ground where he had just stood. The reptilian warrior snarled, spinning, his tail whipping toward Marcus. This time Marcus ducked low, the tail missing his head by inches. The crowd gasped. They had expected him to fall in the first strike. Instead, the scarred human moved, with sharp precision. Every step was measured, every dodge was controlled. He did not waste energy, and he did not panic. He had faced bigger foes before. He had survived worse. Drakkar grew angry. Stand still, little prey, he roared, swinging again. But anger made him sloppy. His heavy claws struck too wide, his steps too loud. And Marcus watched. He learned. He waited. Finally, when Drakkar lunged once more, opening his side, Marcus struck. His blade cut deep across the thinner scales beneath the arm. Blood sprayed, and Drakkar howled in pain. The crowd erupted, half in shock, half in disbelief. A human had drawn first blood. Drakkar staggered back, eyes blazing with fury. He swung wildly now, but Marcus no longer played defense. He darted forward, cutting, striking, always aiming at weak spots, the joints, the thinner scales, the exposed flesh. Each hit was small, but each one weakened the giant reptile further. The laughter in the crowd faded. Whispers spread instead. He's reading. Him? He's not fighting with strength. He's fighting with tactics. Minutes later, Drakkar collapsed to his knees, bleeding from half a dozen cuts, his strength gone. Marcus stood before him, breathing heavy but still steady, his scarred face calm. He raised his sword to Drakkar's throat. The arena fell silent. Even the announcer hesitated. Then Marcus spoke his first words. His voice was low, but it carried. Scars are not weakness, they are survival. They are proof that I am still here when so many others are gone. The blade stopped just short of killing. Drakkar surrendered, bowing his head in defeat. The gates opened, the match declared. Marcus Hale, the scarred human, had won. And though many still hated him, none could laugh anymore. The arena was never quiet. Yet after Marcus Hale's victory, it carried a strange tension. The crowd that once mocked him now whispered. No one had expected the scarred human to survive against Drakkar, let alone win. But Marcus did not smile. He did not raise his sword to the crowd. He only walked back to his corner, wiped the blood from his blade, and waited for what would come next. For him, it was never about glory. It was survival, as it had always been. The announcer's booming voice filled the stadium again. Round 2, next match. Marcus Hale of Earth versus Tyresh, the Stonehide of the Greylock Dominion. The gates opened, and another warrior stepped forward. Tyresh was a massive being with thick rock-like skin, his body built like a living wall. His people were known as Stonehides, nearly impossible to wound because of their natural armor. He carried a hammer so large that 2 humans would have struggled to lift it. The crowd cheered in excitement. To them, this was the end of the scarred man's luck. The human will break under Tyrash's hammer, someone shouted. Scars or no scars, he cannot break stone. Tyrash slammed the hammer against the ground as he entered, sending a shock through the sand. He laughed deeply, his voice like rolling boulders. Little human, I do not need claws or speed. My skin is stronger than your sword. You will tire, and I will crush you. Marcus said nothing. He only lifted his blade again, scarred hand steady, eyes fixed on his opponent. The fight began with a thunderous swing. Tyrash brought down the hammer like a falling star. Marcus dodged to the side, the impact shaking the arena floor and sending dust flying. If that blow had landed, Marcus would have been broken in one strike. The Stonehide laughed. Run if you want. It will not save you. But Marcus was not running. He was studying. Every movement of Tyrash's heavy body, every pause before a swing, every shift of his feet. Marcus watched and remembered. He circled slowly, forcing Tyrash to waste energy with each failed attack. Minutes passed, the hammer smashing the ground, breaking stones, but never Marcus. The crowd grew restless. Some booed, calling the fight boring. Others leaned forward, realizing the human was not afraid. He was patient. Finally, Marcus saw it, the rhythm. Tyrash always lifted the hammer the same way, his elbow exposing a small gap beneath his shoulder where the armor was thinner. It was not much, but Marcus had made a lifetime of turning small chances into survival. The next time the hammer came down, Marcus rolled close instead of away. The crowd gasped, expecting him to be crushed. Instead, his sword flashed upward, cutting into that thin gap of flesh. Blood spilled. Tyrash roared in pain, stumbling back. The stadium erupted with shock. The human had drawn blood again, against a foe believed invincible. Tyrash's fury shook the arena. He swung faster, recklessly now, his great hammer smashing anything in its path. Marcus was forced to move faster too, his breath coming heavier, his muscles burning. Twice the hammer nearly hit him, once grazing his armor and nearly shattering his ribs. But still he endured. Every scar on his body burned with memory. He had been here before, outmatched, overpowered, standing against something that should have killed him, and every time he had survived by finding the weakness. This was no different. Finally, Marcus struck again, sliding low under another swing and driving his sword into the back of Terash's knee, where no stone skin protected him. The giant fell to one knee with a roar, his hammer crashing to the ground. Crowd was on its feet now, cheers mixed with disbelief. The scarred human had done the impossible twice. Tirash tried to rise, but Marcus was already at his side. He pressed the edge of his sword to the stonehide's throat, where even rock skin was thin. "Yield," Marcus said firmly. The giant panted, his stone body trembling from the wounds. Slowly, with a voice filled with rage and shame, he said, "I yield." The announcer declared the victory, and the crowd erupted into thunderous noise. Some shouted in amazement, others in anger. But one thing was clear. The scarred human was no weakling. He was no joke. He was a warrior. As Marcus stepped back to his corner, he felt dozens of alien eyes on him. Some burned with hatred, others with curiosity, but more and more with respect. Warriors who once mocked his scars now studied him carefully. Whispers spread. He sees weaknesses others cannot. The victory over Tirash sent shockwaves through the arena. Whispers followed Marcus Hale wherever he went. Some alien warriors were furious at being shown up by a human. Others were quietly impressed. Even the crowd, which had begun with laughter, now watched him with a mix of fear and fascination. But Marcus did not notice the whispers. He focused only on what mattered, the next fight. He had survived the first rounds with skill and patience. Now he knew the challenges would grow. The stronger the enemy, the smaller the mistake he could make. The announcer's voice echoed, announcing the next match. Marcus Hale of Earth will face Lithra the Shadowblade, assassin of the Keralis clans. The gates opened, revealing a warrior unlike any Marcus had faced. Lithra was slender, moving with a fluid grace that seemed almost unnatural. Her skin shimmered in a dark, shifting pattern, making her difficult to see in the bright arena light. She carried twin blades, each glinting like quicksilver. The crowd murmured. Assassins were rare in the tournament. They relied on speed, cunning, and deadly precision rather than raw power. Many expected Marcus to fall this time. After all, he had survived brute strength and armored giants. But could he survive stealth and deadly speed? Lithra circled him, eyes sharp, studying. "The human thinks he can endure," she said, voice low, almost a hiss. "He will learn how weak he truly is." Marcus said nothing. He studied her stance, noting how her weight shifted, how her fingers gripped the hilts. Scars on his arms tingled, a familiar reminder that pain and past battles had taught him awareness. The duel began. Lithra moved like shadow, striking from unexpected angles. Her blades were fast, cutting the air with deadly whistling sounds. Marcus dodged, rolled, blocked with precise swings, never attacking until an opening appeared. The crowd gasped as he narrowly avoided a strike that would have cleaved him in two. Minutes passed like hours. Lithra attacked and vanished, reappearing elsewhere. Marcus's eyes were sharp, his instincts honed by years of survival. He began to predict her movement, noticing small tells, her breath pattern, a slight shift of weight, the tiniest twitch of her hand. Then it came. A mistake. Lithra lunged too far, overextending herself. Marcus acted instantly. He sidestepped, grabbed her wrist midair, and used her momentum to throw her to the ground. The crowd erupted with a mix of shock and excitement. Lithra sprang back immediately, a smirk on her face. "Interesting," she said. "You are faster than you appear. The scars do not slow you." Marcus did not answer. He tightened his grip on his blade and waited for the next strike. The fight continued, each exchange more intense than the last. Lithra was relentless, a blur of silver blades, but Marcus endured. He blocked, parried, and struck when the opportunity presented itself. Every move was precise, deliberate, a combination of skill and survival instinct. His scars ached with every motion, but they did not weaken him. In fact, they reminded him of every battle he had faced and survived. Finally, after a rapid flurry, Marcus saw his chance. Lythra's blade dipped too low as she tried to strike his side. Marcus moved, ducked, and delivered a precise cut to her arm. She hissed and retreated, wounded. The crowd was on its feet now. Some shouted in disbelief, others in admiration. A human had survived an assassin, something few thought possible. Lythra's eyes widened. For the first time she showed a flicker of respect. "You fight not as a human," she said quietly. "You fight as if you have seen death and come back every time." Marcus's blue eyes met hers, steady and calm. "I have," he said simply. The match did not last long after that. Lythra, recognizing the human's skill and endurance, yielded. The announcer's voice declared Marcus the winner, and the crowd erupted again. For the first time in the tournament, aliens who had mocked him now whispered, "The human, he may be something more." Back in his corner, Marcus wiped his blade, clean. Sweat and blood mixed on his skin, but he remained composed. He felt the weight of the day, the pressure of fighting not once but 3 formidable opponents. Yet he knew the tournament had only just begun. Each victory brought stronger, enemies more cunning, more powerful, and each enemy watched him carefully, hoping to find a weakness. In the quiet moments between fights, Marcus reflected on what had brought him here. He remembered the wars on Earth, where survival had been a daily struggle. He remembered the battles, in distant colonies, fighting raiders and mercenaries when supplies ran low. Every scar on his body was a memory, a lesson learned, a story of survival. And now, those lessons were paying off in a galaxy where survival meant more than strength. Word of his victories began to spread among the other competitors. Some plotted against him, hoping to humiliate or trap him. Others studied him silently, trying to learn what made the human so unbreakable. Marcus did not notice the plotting. He only prepared, for he knew that survival required focus, patience, and adaptability. As the sun of Zalor Prime began to dip behind the horizon, the arena glowed in the evening light. The shadows stretched long across the sand, and the crowd still buzzed with excitement and speculation. The scarred human had survived every test so far. He had endured brute strength, massive armor, and deadly speed. Now whispers in the stands were no longer of mockery. They were of curiosity and caution. Marcus looked toward the next round, knowing it would be even harder. He did not fear. He had faced stronger odds before. The galaxy might underestimate him now. But every challenge, every scar, and every fight had taught him one truth. Survival was not about avoiding pain or weakness. It was about enduring, adapting, and turning every disadvantage into strength. And as he adjusted the strap of his sword, the scarred human felt something familiar stirring inside. A quiet, steady determination. He would not just survive this tournament. He would rise, and when he did, the galaxy would not laugh. The rising storm of whispers, caution, and fear around Marcus Hale was only the beginning. Every warrior who had mocked him now knew the human was no ordinary fighter. He was a survivor, a strategist, and perhaps something even greater. And somewhere deep in his mind, Marcus allowed himself a small private thought. One day, those who laughed at him would remember his name. The arena had fallen quiet after Marcus Hale's victories. The alien spectators who had once laughed at his scars now watched him with a mixture of fear and respect. Even the other competitors were uneasy. The scarred human had survived brute strength, armored giants, and deadly assassins. He had endured what few could survive, and he was still standing, but not all were pleased. Among the alien elite, whispers of fear had grown into anger. Champions who had hoped to win the tournament with ease now saw Marcus as a threat. His cleverness, his patience, and his endurance had become a symbol of something dangerous. That even a single human could defy the odds of the galaxy. In a dim chamber beneath the arena, a council of powerful alien leaders met in secret. Their faces were grim. "We cannot allow this human to continue," hissed the reptilian warlord Therok. "He is not strong in the way we understand strength, yet he wins. His victories are a threat to our honor." The insectoid assassin, Lythra's superior, clicked her mandibles. "He learns too fast, he adapts. If we let him survive the next rounds, he could reach the finals. Then no champion, no alien will feel safe. A plan was formed. They would not wait for the next match. They would strike before it began. That night, as Marcus rested in his simple quarters beneath the arena, shadows moved across the corridors. Silent figures slipped past guards and security systems. They were assassins sent by the elite, armed with poison darts, energy blades, and traps designed to end his life before he could step into the next fight. Marcus slept lightly, his mind trained by years of battles to notice the smallest shift in the air. A whisper of movement, a shadow crossing the wall. He felt it. He opened his eyes slowly, hand already on the hilt of his blade. The first attacker struck. A small, lithe figure lunged at him with a blade, aiming for his chest. Marcus rolled, dodging the strike, and grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisting it until the alien dropped the weapon. Another came from the side, but Marcus pivoted, striking with precision. In moments, the first wave was subdued. The remaining assassins hesitated, realizing they underestimated the human. Marcus's scars burned with adrenaline, not pain but memory. Each mark reminded him of past fights, of moments where survival depended on alertness and skill. The battle was fierce but brief. Marcus moved with deadly efficiency. He did not strike to kill unnecessarily, he struck to disable, using every lesson his scars had taught him. By the time the chamber fell silent, the assassins were incapacitated and Marcus stood breathing steadily, his blade clean but his resolve sharpened. He knew what had happened. This was no random attack. This was a warning. The elites feared him. They would try again, stronger, smarter. And yet, he felt no fear. He had survived worse than the shadows of assassins in the night. The next day, the arena buzzed with energy. The sun of Zalor Prime glinted off the sand, casting long shadows. Over the arena floor, Marcus stepped into the next match, his body bearing the marks of the night's battle. Bruises and small cuts ran across his arms and shoulders, but he displayed them openly. Each scar was a story, a reminder that he had survived not just the tournament, but those who sought to end him before it even began. The scarred hum. The arena was empty now, but the echoes of the crowd's cheers still lingered in the air. Marcus Hale walked slowly across the sand, his blade sheathed and his body bearing the marks of countless battles. Bruises, cuts, and scars crisscrossed, his skin a map of survival and endurance. Every wound was a story, every scar a lesson. The victories he had earned that day were not just for himself. They were proof that even the smallest, seemingly weakest race in the galaxy could rise, endure, and conquer. Proof that scars were not shameful. They were the marks of strength. In the days that followed, stories of Marcus Hale spread across worlds. Merchants spoke of the human who had defeated the unbroken champion. Children whispered about the scarred man who had survived impossible odds. Warriors studied his techniques and tactics, hoping to learn how a single human could survive battles that would have destroyed even the greatest alien fighters. But Marcus did not seek fame. He did not wear his victories as a crown. Instead, he traveled quietly from planet to planet, speaking only when necessary, fighting only when survival demanded. He had no desire to dominate or rule. He had only one goal: to endure, and to show others that survival itself was a form of strength. On Zalor Prime, the elites who had once mocked him now spoke his name with caution. They could not ignore the lessons he had taught them. A single, human, scarred, and mortal had outsmarted, outlasted, and defeated warriors stronger, faster, and seemingly invincible. The galaxy had learned that perfection was not the measure of strength. Resilience was. Young warriors, both human and alien, began to carve his symbol into their armor. They spoke of endurance, courage, and the will to rise again. Marcus had become more than a competitor. He had become a symbol, a legend that transcended species and worlds. Yet Marcus remained humble. He visited villages on remote planets, helping rebuild after raids and conflicts. He trained soldiers who had never known victory, teaching them not just to fight but to survive, to endure, and to value the scars that life gave them. One evening, on a quiet world far from the arena, Marcus sat beside a small campfire. Children gathered around, their eyes wide with curiosity and admiration. A young alien boy asked, "Sir, why do you fight with so many scars? Don't they hurt?" Marcus smiled, a soft, tired smile. "Yes," he said, "scars hurt. They burn, sometimes, and they ache. But they also remind me of every challenge I've faced. Every scar is proof that I survived. They are lessons, not shame. And they tell a story, my story, and the story of anyone who refuses to give up." The children nodded, fascinated. The lesson was simple yet powerful. Scars were not a mark of weakness. They were a badge of honor. In the arena, stories continued to circulate. Every champion who had faced Marcus remembered him, not for his size or his power, but for his mind, his endurance, and his unbreakable spirit. They spoke of the human who had turned every disadvantage into an advantage, who had fought with patience and intelligence, who had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. Across the galaxy, the phrase "they laughed at the scars on him, but the human warrior turned and became a legend" became a saying, repeated in schools, training halls, and marketplaces. It inspired generations of humans and aliens alike. It reminded everyone that survival, resilience, and determination were more powerful than any weapon or armor. Marcus himself never cared for fame. He cared for survival, for teaching, and for proving a simple truth: that humans, though mortal and scarred, could rise above any challenge. And rise they did. In the years that followed, Marcus's legend only grew. Stories of his battles, his endurance, and his wisdom spread further than any warrior had ever imagined. Planets he had never visited told tales of the human who had survived. The strongest champions in the galaxy. Young warriors practiced the techniques he had used, and philosophers spoke of the lessons of scars, patience, and resilience. And yet, Marcus remained the same man he had always been. Scarred, humble, and focused on survival. He did not need statues, trophies, or titles. His legend was not in material symbols. It was in the hearts and minds of those who had witnessed, learned, and been inspired by his endurance. On a quiet evening, Marcus stood on a cliff overlooking a vast alien landscape. The twin suns of that world were setting, casting golden light across valleys and mountains. He raised his arms briefly, letting the wind brush against his scars. Each mark glowed faintly in the sunset, a reminder of battles survived, of pain endured, and of victories won. He whispered to himself, "They laughed at the scars on me, and now they remember them as proof that humans endure." The galaxy remembered too. Marcus Hale, the scarred human warrior, had become more than a champion. He had become a legend, a symbol of resilience, a beacon of hope. And though he walked quietly among the stars, the story of his endurance echoed in every corner of the galaxy, inspiring countless others to rise, to endure, and to turn their own scars into strength. Even centuries later, children would hear the tale and dream of surviving the impossible. Young warriors would look at their own scars, whether small or large, and remember the lesson Marcus had taught: that scars are not shame. They are proof that life, in all its trials, can be endured. Marcus Hale had risen from mockery and underestimation. He had faced the greatest challenges, endured betrayal, survived impossible odds, and emerged victorious. And in doing so, he proved a truth the galaxy would never forget: strength is not in perfection, power, or flawless bodies. Strength is in surviving, adapting, enduring, and turning every scar into a symbol of triumph. The legend of the scarred human would never fade. The day of the finals arrived. The arena of Zalor Prime was filled beyond capacity. Tens of thousands of spectators packed in to witness the ultimate battle. The galaxy had heard of Marcus Hale, the scarred human who had survived impossible fights. Rumors of his victories spread to distant worlds, and now every eye in the stadium was on him. Marcus stood in the arena, his body marked with scars from previous battles. Fresh cuts from the cyborg duel a day earlier ran across his arms and chest. Every scar told a story, every mark a testament to survival. He carried his simple steel blade, nothing fancy, nothing flashy, but it had become an extension of himself. The announcer's voice boomed over the crowd. And now, the final match. Marcus Hale of Earth versus Korath the Unbroken, reigning champion of the Vern Dominion. Korath entered the arena and the crowd erupted in cheers. He was a giant, nearly 4 meters tall, with muscles rippling beneath smooth, armored skin. His eyes glowed with confidence, his aura radiating the dominance of years of victories. Where Marcus had scars, Korath was flawless, a picture of perfection in strength and skill. The aliens who had doubted Marcus early in the tournament now watched with cautious curiosity. Could a human, scarred and mortal, stand against a legend? Korath stepped forward, voice echoing like a war horn. Human, your scars are not a badge of honor. They are proof that you are weak. Today, I will show the galaxy what true power looks like. Marcus said nothing. He only raised his sword and met the champion's gaze with steady, unwavering eyes. There was no fear in him. Fear had never saved him, but patience, skill, and endurance had. And now, they would serve him once more. The duel began. Korath moved like a predator, his strikes fast and powerful, each one designed to crush, cut, or throw Marcus across the arena. The ground shook beneath his feet. Marcus dodged, rolled, and countered, using every lesson learned from his previous battles. He relied not on raw strength but on precision, timing, and adaptability. The crowd was on edge. Every strike from Korath seemed destined to end the human, yet Marcus endured. He blocked and parried with the steel blade, turning the champion's strength against him. Every scar on Marcus's body ached with the effort, but each one reminded him of survival, of past victories over seemingly impossible odds. Minutes passed and the duel escalated. Korath's strikes became faster, more calculated. He tested Marcus, probing for weaknesses. The champion's confidence was immense, but Marcus's focus was greater. He observed patterns, noticed the slight delay in Korath's swings, the small shift in his footing before he attacked. Every scar on his body had taught him to watch, to endure, to adapt. Then it happened. Korath lunged, overextending in a powerful strike. Marcus sidestepped, dodged under the champion's arm, and struck a critical point near Korath's side, an armored gap exposed only momentarily during the swing. Korath staggered, the crowd gasping in shock. A human had just found weakness in the undefeated champion. Korath's eyes widened. Rage and disbelief flashed across his face. "Impossible!" he roared. Marcus pressed on. He dodged, struck, and maneuvered with the skill of a warrior who had survived every challenge thrown at him. The champion struck back, powerful and relentless, but Marcus anticipated and adapted, never letting Korath's strength overpower him. Every move was a test of endurance, every strike a proof that scars were not weakness. They were survival. They were experience. They were wisdom forged in battle. The duel reached a climax. Korath, frustrated and desperate, attacked with everything he had. Marcus dodged a massive strike, rolled under Korath's legs, and came up behind him. With a precise, well-aimed,